Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Welcome to the program. August 15th, beautiful day here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I returned to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania yesterday after this really wonderful weekend with my family, celebrating my mom's 100th birthday. And she's just doing, she's amazing. I give up. I keep telling her, you're a freak. It's a freak of nature. I don't know. I have to tell you, I'm a little out of it. Probably more than a little out of it. Traveling, as you know, in this day and age is often fraught, and one can never assume that whatever itinerary you have planned or however you think you're getting where you're getting, may or may not, in fact, prove to be true, which happened in this case for me. For one thing, last time I spoke to you was last Wednesday, and my son and I were leaving Thursday morning, and so we both tested to make sure we weren't bringing COVID to the party. And, you can tell where this is going. I didn't have it, but my son did. And it was I'm still so bummed I can't see straight. So I had to leave my sick son, who didn't have, his symptoms were not horrible. It was okay, but he missed this event he'd been looking forward to and missed seeing the family many of whom he hasn't seen because of this damn virus for years. So that was a bummer. And I went by myself. And of course, I was informed that the crew that was flying the plane from Pittsburgh to Chicago had gotten in very late the night before, and because of safety rules, which I'm glad are in place, they could not work again until a certain time, which meant that the time my plane was supposed to leave was going to have to be pushed forward, I guess. Right? It'd be leaving later. Yeah, so that happened. And it left so much later that I couldn't make the connecting flight to Green Bay, Wisconsin. And this is why I would rather stay home. Friggin' nightmare. I made an effort. I ran. Boy, this shows my pacemaker really was kicked in because I ran like hell. I saw the flight was still on the ground to Green Bay. I ran about 3 miles, I swear to God, dragging my luggage. Arrived at the gate, and the plane was still there. And I said, she said, we've closed the gate. I said, that's a plane. I have a ticket. Wouldn't let me on. Well, you don't need to hear that. But it's just so. So the only other flight, there's no way to get to Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's, a town that small just does not have, great service. So the next possible flight was at 8:30, meaning I was going to miss my mom's birthday. So anyway, I rented a car. I found out one thing, you can't rent a car one way. They won't let you anymore. They said, we don't do it. We simply don't do it. So then I'm stuck. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. I'm sorry. But also what happened is that the last night I was there, which was Saturday night, because I was with family that I don't get to see, I mean, I stayed up till the early hours of Sunday morning, like till almost 3 a.m., talking to a niece. And I had about 3.5 hours sleep and then had to get up and drive the damn rental car back to O'Hare so that I could get on the flight to Pittsburgh to come home. And I must admit, we've been drinking too. I was a little hungover, exhausted. By the time I got home yesterday, I was really like a zombie. Really. I made it though. I did make it. I'm sorry, guys. I still am. And also, I have to tell you that I did not imbibe in news of the day while I was there. I drank in my family, and the Mar-a-Lago stuff, everything over the weekend, none of that. I didn't want it to intrude. And I even managed to avoid a lot of doomsday conversations with folks, which didn't take as much doing as I thought, since I think everybody had the same idea. Let's not. It's bad enough to have this sort of constant concern and even fear and that horror of a human, Trump, in your head so often. And, he was not invited to this party. So that was the good thing that happened, in fact. So I've been trying to play catch up this morning, and again, so I might be a little disjointed, but I did I did read a few things that I'd like to sort of throw out there and pass on to you and see if you have any interest in them. One of the things I found interesting, let's see if it comes up. I bet it doesn't. Oh, yeah, I did. Was about all of the Mar-a-Lago and FBI reporting and the growing concern that this would, set off the loons, which it, obviously has, and has shown the Republican Party to be truly co-opted and owned as a subsidiary of Trump Inc. Just amazing. Whatever happened to those law and order Republicans of yore? Remember them? And now they hate the FBI. I love it. So I thought it was both funny and wonderful because it poses the even larger question. I happened to see this morning. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch had asked a question that I hadn't seen asked by anybody else. Everybody, all the breathless reporting, I'm sure, and nattering about what Trump had in those boxes and what it meant, and would he be indicted, and blah, blah, blah. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch asked this: Why would an ex-president who doesn't read, right? We know he doesn't read. He never would do regular briefings. Everything had to be put down. At most, he would consume, double-spaced, one-paged bullet points about something that other presidents would delve into detail about. He doesn't read, he watches TV. So the Dispatch asked that question, and think about it. Why would an ex-president who doesn't read want boxes of documents at his home? I mean, how many were not? Do we know? Over 24 that he had to steal. I mean, it did not belong to him. They belonged to the country, to the archives, and which contained, as we now know, very often top secret kinds of material. So it does beg the question: why? What? And this is. I'm sure people have opined about it. What is in those boxes? And if it was something so incriminating, why wouldn't he have destroyed them? As we know, he destroys so many other things. We know he destroyed documents. Is he holding them? Was he going to sell them to another country? Was it blackmail material? Was it what? What is in it? I'm asking. Because if it was something that was going to implicate him, well, if he's gone so far as to steal the stuff and then refuse to give it over and then lie about the fact that he had, in fact, given everything he had and all of this kind of stuff, then why would he not just torch it? Why would he want this stuff at his house when we know he ain't going to read it and he had no legal right to have it? It's I don't know. So I'm just saying, I think that's a interesting question. And I suspect at some point we will get to the bottom of it, the cornucopia of excuses and constantly changing stories about why and whatever they were doing there is so absurd. It's like dealing with like a 4-year-old who's not very good at lying to cover up his tracks, who's committed some misbehavior and comes up with one outlandish story after another. I mean, Trump has done everything but say the dog ate it, but we know he doesn't like dogs. So I don't know. I don't know. I read something that David Brooks wrote. He's apoplectic. He thinks that much as the Dobbs Supreme Court case energized Democratic voters, he fears that the FBI raid will prove to have done the same for the Republicans. And Brooks points out that what's been set up here now with this raid is a clash between the legal system of the country and potentially the electoral system. And he puts it thusly: okay, so what happens if a prosecutor charges Trump? he gets charged with all those crimes that were, talked about in the warrant, and they're serious. Okay, let's say that happens, and he is indicted, and he is in fact convicted. Now, what if this is happening as he is truly running? He has the Republican nomination in hand. So a guy indicted by the legal system of the country, he's running to lead. As he's running, or even as he's elected. This is the potential clash. What happens if the legal system of the country says, hey, you, Donald J. Trump, you're supposed to go to jail tomorrow for these crimes that you have, in fact, been convicted of. You're supposed to go to jail tomorrow. What happens if that happens at essentially the same time as the electoral system says he's supposed to take the oath of office? Now, I doubt that it'll play out like that, but the thing is we've learned that worst case scenarios seem to have become more and more likely of actually coming true. And David Brooks, a very serious, sober fellow, my estimation, says, I presume if all of that were to happen, if he's been convicted and yet he wins, I presume that he would not make it to the White House, that he would be arrested and he'd be imprisoned. He said, I also presume that there would then be widespread political violence and a complete democratic breakdown. I don't know. Don't know what we're supposed to do. I mean, no one, and he says that too. We need to punish those who commit crimes. I don't know. Brooks' final line is, it feels as though we're walking towards some sort of storm and there's no honorable way to alter our course. Yeah, just keep at it. God, I hate this guy, Trump. Just hate him. Maureen Dowd called him this egomaniac, desecrating our democracy, tearing this country apart for his own benefit. It's so clear that's what's happening. And that there's an entire party. Used to be the Republican Party that is going along with him, that lives in fear of him. Just amazing to me. Oh, God. So, there's that. What else? I'm sorry. I am so discombobulated. I actually, while I was on the plane coming home last night, through the blur of my exhaustion, I had picked up a paper and I was ripping stuff out of it. After which I stuffed it into my carry-on for use, perhaps, doing the show today. And I haven't unpacked yet. So it just occurred to me. I'm looking here, and I like have nothing in front of me, and I thought, oh yeah, it's in my suitcase. Oh man, Not that I couldn't get up and, you want to go unpack my suitcase with me? Dear God. Okay, so another thing I did read this morning, that, and having come from Wisconsin and driven through part of it, I'm seeing the signs. They've got a big election there. They've got one of the potential Republican Senate seats, like we do in Pennsylvania, that is considered a possible takeaway for the Democrats. Obviously, here that would be Fetterman beating Oz to take Toomey's seat. And in Wisconsin, the seat is currently held by can't say his name without the adjective, the loathsome Senator Johnson, who had vowed he would not run for re-election, but of course, promises don't mean anything to these totally dishonorable humans. So he is running, Ron Johnson, for re-election. And the guy who's running against him, and in the town of Green Bay, I saw a number of signs. And the sign is an odd one. The guy who's running, because you see signs in Green Bay front yards that say Mandela. And that's a powerful name, isn't it? I mean, it's a powerful name for a reason, because it belonged to such an extraordinary man, Nelson Mandela. And although I don't know it, my bet is that Mandela Barnes, who is the Democrat running against Johnson, was probably given that name by his parents to honor Nelson Mandela. And I bring it up because this is it's sort of astonishing. And it makes me sort of think also of people like me who say, well, who are we going to run against? Whoever, DeSantis, Trump, who are we going to run? And the best person I see on the horizon, frankly, is Pete Buttigieg. And yet I think, wait, but he's gay, and he'd be bringing, that's a culture war. Like, oh my God, he's gay. He's got a husband. He's got He's got interracial little twins that they're raising, these two guys. And I thought, it's just not the right time, but maybe it's the perfect time. The other thing about Buttigieg is he's young. And as you know, I have been railing at the gerontocracy that is our political reality at almost every level of government. So Mandela Barnes, remember the name, because that could be the next senator. God, I hope, from the state of Wisconsin. And what makes it amazing is, like you would say, that's not the person to run now. Wisconsin is just a hair trigger away from turning red. You're going to put up a black guy named Mandela, who, by the way, is 35 years old, will be only the second millennial ever to be a senator of the United States. He'll be absolutely one of the youngest, if not the youngest, senator. And he's black from a very white state. Whoa. From a purple state? Is this a good idea? Well, we'll find out in like 90 days, I guess, right? The good news is Ron Johnson is so revolting that thin group of moderates or independent voters, he doesn't attract a lot of them. He only attracts crazies and, tribal Trumpies, of which there are many, 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 many in that state. But Mandela Barnes, who, like Fetterman here, I believe he's a lieutenant governor, isn't he? He's a lieutenant governor of the AG. I think he's a lieutenant governor. I might be wrong about that completely. I don't know. This is a guy who I've seen a few times. He is, attractive. He's charismatic. He's passionate. He's fantastic. And in up on a stage next to that sclerotic, vile, lying old white guy, Johnson, there is a vitality there and an energy that, boy, we need. And we need senators like this who don't come from wealth, who come from, tough, high poverty areas. He was middle class. His dad was a UAW worker. His mom was a teacher. But they grew up in the black ghetto in Milwaukee, one of the most segregated cities. I don't know if it can hold a candle to Pittsburgh. And that he has risen to the level he has already in a state. And the other senator, as we pointed out recently, is a gay woman, a Democrat, Tammy Baldwin. So let's, these ideas we get in our head of what a state is. And Wisconsin used to be such a progressive state. And then it got crazy, like so many other places in America. But the reality is, after these midterms, it could have two senators, both Democrats, one the youngest senator, and a black man, and the other a lesbian. This is the kind of thing, I guess, that makes the Trump guys nuts, huh? And the article in the Times about this race points something out, and that we again, and I don't know that national media reporting ever really makes clear, but Wisconsin is more politically complex than the sort of cartoon image that you might get on cable news shows. And it is pointed out that in this so obvious swing state where races get won by razor-thin margins, that 10 of the last 11 statewide contests, the more liberal candidate has won. 10 of the last 11 statewide contests. And Tammy Baldwin, the gay senator, the first open lesbian to be in the Senate of the United States, was reelected 4 years ago by an overwhelming margin, 11-point margin. So, says here, we'll keep our fingers crossed. If Mandela Barnes can turn out just a few thousand young black voters, his of his age, his cohort, he could pull off what will be considered an upset. And the article points out that this is when colleges will be seeing a lot more of the kids coming back to the campuses. So you might see more political engagement on college campuses for this race, and a greater sense of activism and possibility and the energy of the young people. And the reality is that since Obama, turnout in Milwaukee has never, ever reached the levels it did when that energy that Obama brought was there. It's been down since then. And it might just be that this other young black with a strange name will do what Obama did. And if he can get just a few thousand, maybe, young black voters out to the polls, that could be all you need in that state to give him a ticket to the United States Senate. And it could also be the beginning of something that needs to happen, a generational shift. A generational shift. Letting this young energy in. I think it's long overdue. I'm looking at a picture that so blew me away. And I'm looking at it again as I speak. It really blows me away. I keep looking for something. It's a picture that is reprinted in yesterday's New York Times. And it's a picture of a staircase, pretty long public staircase, with a bunch of people mostly walking down it. Some are walking up it. But it's from far enough away that, I mean, there's a lot of people in this picture. I started trying to actually even count them, and I'm going to say there's like 60, 65 human beings captured in this one picture of this large outdoor staircase in some kind of a public setting. Every single one of those people is looking at a screen held in their hand. Every one. And they're often in groups. You see no interaction between one human being and another. They're walking down the stairs. They're not looking at the stairs. One woman's walking against the grain. She's walking up, and she is about to go directly into the path. She's right on a collision course with some guy 4 steps up walking down. But this picture is so depressing to me. I can't even. I remember when I first started seeing this kind of thing. I remember I was in a now defunct Pittsburgh restaurant, the Elbow Room, and I watched a table it was 4 young people, relatively young people, and they had a booth. They were in a booth, and I was mesmerized and appalled because they weren't speaking to each other. They all were on their phones. And I remember thinking, why are you here? Why are you even together? You think you're together? Why go why even? I couldn't understand it. Or when I first started seeing people, walking down the street, nobody interacting, everybody on their phone. And there's a fascinating story. Boy, look it up. Ezra Klein writing, this is what the picture is illustrating. The medium really is the message. And it talks about something certainly that won't come as a shock, that we, in every way, have been transformed by technology. I mean, and in more quickly, a transformation of social interaction, political interaction, intimate interaction, all of it totally just blown up and changed in all of our lifetimes and relatively recently. A picture like the picture I'm looking at would be incomprehensible to somebody, let's say, who died in 1980, even 1990. Look at this picture, you could say to them. What seems unusual? And they wouldn't have it. They say, what are they all? Why are they all what is that they're holding, and why are they looking down? Why aren't they taking in the environment that they're walking through? They're all alone together. And we've been warned, from Marshall McLuhan on, and I'm sure people before him, that that it's the medium that we employ that has extraordinary power to alter us. Now, I don't know many people who would argue that this is an alteration for the better. I can't imagine anybody looking at this picture and saying, well, wow, look at that. Now there's progress for humanity. Look at that. Man, that's something that really brings people together, doesn't it? Ha! My God. What is that mantra that so many like new agey people, be in the moment, stay in the moment? Well, I guess they're all in the moment, all by themselves. It is the most, I swear, this is just driving me crazy, this picture. The piece is fascinating, and mostly because it just puts into very, very clearly what I have been thinking and saying for so long. The ease, I think, with which you can create such evolutionary change without anyone really sitting down and deciding, did we ever have a vote? Did we want to do this? Did we think life might have been better some other way? I mean, it's just swept away. And he had one line in here which just blew me away. And then I thought, why would you be blown away? It's a big, I don't make a point of being in men's bathrooms. So this is, I guess, it hadn't occurred to me. But he says, many times I've walked into a public bathroom and everyone is simultaneously using a urinal and staring at a screen. Oh my God. Of course. How is that not like some crazed addiction that we can't lift our heads up? Ever, apparently, ever. And he quotes one of the earlier warners, the people who were watching and seeing that we were doing something to ourselves. This guy was Nicholas Carr. He wrote a book called The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. And that was back in 2011. And no one's listening. He wrote this because it was happening to him as it happened to all of us. It was we were all, I used to call it maybe a decade or two ago, I kept saying we are self-robotizing. Now it doesn't quite, I mean, just that we're now willing to hold these things in our hands with our heads down, but eventually the technology will simply be embedded in us, right? Of course it will. So Carr says, as he's writing this book, and again, it's about a little over 10 years ago, he says, because he, unlike most, was self-aware, he said, the very way my brain worked seemed to be changing. I began worrying about my inability to pay attention to one thing for more than a couple of minutes. At first, I'd figured that the problem was a symptom of, middle-aged mind rot. But my brain, I realized, wasn't just drifting. It was hungry. There it is. It was hungry. It was demanding to be fed the way the internet fed it. And the more it was fed, the hungrier it became. Even when I was away from my computer, I yearned to check my email, to click links, to do some Googling. I wanted to be connected. My brain was hungry. That's it exactly. We now all have constantly hungry and insatiable brains. Which is not to say we're getting smarter, quite the opposite. And so when I squawk about media literacy being, I think, the most important knowledge that anyone can be armed with in this world, I'm sure most people think I'm nuts. I'd put it before reading, writing, and arithmetic. Media literacy, having that self-awareness of what media is doing to you all the time and what it has already done to you. I worked in television and watched as it turned everything, including the news in which I worked, into entertainment. And by turning everything into entertainment, it turned all of us into spectators and consumers of entertainment. And you know what happens? People trained like that elect Donald Trump as the president. Just another reality show. And of course, as he points out in here, reality show means, of course, a show that is not real. Because everything's been turned on its head. There's no reality in a reality show. There's the appearance of reality. And then he says, you think there's a difference between CNN and Fox or MSNBC? Yeah, they might be, ideologically different. But cable news is cable news. This is something else I've been carping about. I barely ever turn it on anymore. Because when you are media literate, it's like self-abuse. You can't do it. And Klein points out, he says, cable news in all its forms is the same. The look of the anchors, the gloss of the graphics, the aesthetics of urgency and threat, the speed, the immediacy, the conflict. Yes, it's entertainment. And it's designed knowingly to hook you, to make you hungry for more. That's why they tease you. Coming up, but you stay. And then they don't give you what they said they were going to. They say again, and coming up. And we fall for it over and over and over again. So addicted, so hungry for the next fix. So television has taught us that everything should be entertaining. But that isn't true. And that's where we get to what Chris Potter, so to me, famously said. We are an unserious people living in serious times. Because some things are not entertainment. And electing people is one of them. That should not be entertaining. And yet, I was thinking about John Fetterman. He's got it. He understands the whole thing now. He understands that he's a product. He has understood it from day one. He's a product. He's a brand. He is something that needs to be sold as and is compelling and is entertaining. Trump knew it. And people who don't know it, I suppose, don't get elected anymore. They hire people who know it and try to create them into the product. But and he has a complaint in here that is my complaint, but a lot of good it does anybody, is I've often asked, like cried into the wilderness, why don't the people, these smart, technologically gifted people who create these platforms and who create this technology, why don't they ever think about how it could backfire in ways they haven't thought about? They're too taken by that they can. So they don't think, should I? And of course, even if one of them thought, you know what, this could really harm more people than it will help, I guess I'll start working on something else. Well, it wouldn't change anything because somebody else will come along and do what that person did not. And Ezra Klein argues that these guys, he says, they do not, the very people who've given us all these tools, they really don't take technology seriously enough. They absolutely refuse to see how it is changing them, changing their children, changing everything in the world as we know it. And they don't have the humility or the self-awareness to pause. No, we don't. And so here we live, and we see the kids now, and it says here in this article that it's known now that Instagram is literally harming our children. It says here, Instagram, the way it works is literally changing the way teenagers think and how they perceive themselves. It is supercharging their need for approval, constant approval of how they look, God, and what they say and what they're doing. And again, you can never get enough. So they are in a constant state of hunger, want, agitation, worry. And all of these platforms, he says, you can take any of them, take Twitter, take all of them, and they all mess with us. And we're willing accomplices. It's just amazing, isn't it? Isn't it? So, the last thing here that really struck me, and I'll just share that with you, is that if you want to fight back a little bit, the thing you want to take back is your attention. That's what they are all vying for. Obviously, marketers want your attention so they can sell you something. The entertainment that they stick their advertising in is designed to also, keep you, hold you, get your attention. So if you want to be a radical in this world, don't let them. And he suggests another book called How to Do Nothing, Resisting the Attention Economy, by a woman named Jenny Odell. And here's what she says. When you spend enough time with someone who pays close attention to something, you inevitably start to pay attention to some of the same things. I've also learned that patterns of attention, what we choose to notice and what we choose to not, are how we render reality for ourselves, and thus how we have a direct bearing on what we feel is possible at any given time. These aspects taken together suggest to me the revolutionary potential of taking back our attention. Yeah. That was, of all the stuff I pawed through in my cloudy way today, that's what jumped out at me and was without a doubt the most positive thing that jumped out at me, because it was the only thing that suggested that I still have agency, that I still have power, even if I am surrounded by this constant machinery that knows how to push every one of our buttons, that knows how to steal our attention constantly. It's why I love silence. Because when you sit in silence, your brain can surprise you. My 8-year-old nephew yesterday was complaining about being bored, as any 8-year-old stuck with a bunch of old people would. I'm bored. Boring. And I told him, I said, you know what? Being bored is the beginning of being an inventor. Being bored is the beginning of creating something great. Let your head be bored and just follow it. And we don't get enough of that, and children don't get enough. Right? So, I'm just saying. Let's all acknowledge we're all hooked. And it has not benefited us as much as it's harmed us. Right? And let's just try revolutionary tactics like owning your own attention. I have a call. Boy, why? We only have a minute or two left. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Lynn.
Hi.
A couple of things. One, a very, very, very happy birthday to you and your mother.
Thank you.
How wonderful to celebrate 100 years. God bless her. The first thing I noticed when I noticed cell phones, I was on the trip to Italy. It had to be the late 90s. And we were in a small town at a restaurant, and we looked across the table, and there was a young couple, and they both had cell phones. And the European cell phone market was exploded long before ours. We had car phones, but we didn't have the walk-around cell phones that they had because they always had such lousy landlines. The cell phone was amazing for
them. Just took off. It took off because you know, we had great phones. Why did we need them? But anyway, that was the very first time, and I thought, I wonder if they're like, are they talking to each other? Are they talking to somebody who's not at dinner with them? But they were both on their phones. It was so crazy. Yeah.
And just my third comment is, today is August 15th, and in Italy, it's Ferragosto, and it's a day of do nothing. It is just, I mean, everything is closed, gas stations, stores, restaurants, everything is closed. And then about 6 o'clock in the evening, people start coming out into the town squares and, you know, and reconnecting. People have picnics and, you know, they just enjoy the day of just being. And it's
how
wonderful, wonderful holiday. But I also will say that as a tourist, it was a little bit shocking because, you know, when you're touring, you want to, you know, go, do CCC, whatever. And we just had to just kick back. We met friends and we just enjoyed the day of doing nothing. So I don't think
I've never heard of that.
Any of those. Yes, it's Ferragosto today.
How wonderful. They should, you know, ban cell phones that day too.
Just everything. Shut it all down. Just shut it all down. But it's
wonderful.
It's a crazy, crazy, crazy world. But anyway,
indeed.
Good to talk to you, and I'll keep in touch.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, bye. That was a great call. In under the wire. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. All right. That's it for me this day. I'm going to go outside. Man, it looks beautiful out there. Okay? Enjoy your day. And you know what? Take back your attention. Intentionally. Try it.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.